1707, the Kingdom of Great Britain was created through the political union between the Kingdom of England, which included Wales, and the Kingdom of Scotland. This event was the result of the Treaty of Union signed 122 July 1706 and ratified by the English and Scottish Parliaments to create the Act of Union of 1707. The Acts of Union 1707 declared that the Kingdom of England and Scotland were united into one kingdom by the name of Great Britain. The Acts of 1800 uniting the Kingdom of Great Britain and the Kingdom of Ireland in 1801, forming the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Following the partition of Ireland and the independence of the Irish Free State in 1922, which left Northern Ireland as the only part of the island of Ireland within the United Kingdom, the name was changed to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
The history of Wales began with the arrival of the Romans, who began their conquest in AD 43. During the late medieval period, the territory of Wales continued to be divided into small kingdoms, with the kingdoms being the most powerful rule was normally recognized as the kings of the Britons, and later against the Norman conqueror who reached the borders of Wales in 1067. The Wales launched several revolts against English rule, the last of which was led by Owen in the early 15th century, who controlled Wales during of Wales of few years earlier. The English throne restored its authority. Under English authority, Wales became part of the Kingdom of Great Britain once 707.
History of Scotland after disunion of the United Kingdom. Suspicion and mistrust between the two countries have prevented the union through the 17th century. The Scots feared that they would simply become another region of England, being swallowed up as happened to Wales some 100 years earlier. For England, they feared that the Scots may take sides with France and remake the old alliance was decided. In the late 1690s, however, almost every Scot who had £5 in his or her pocket invested in the daring scheme to establishing a Scottish colony in Panama. Poorly planned, the venture ended early in the 1700s with significant loss of life and financial ruin in the Kingdom of Scotland. With many influential individuals and whole families left bankrupt by the disaster, a few financial incentives appear to have convinced some 13 Scottish MPs for the potential benefits of union with England. In the words of Robert Burns, they were bought and sold for English gold. On January 16, 1707, the Act of Union was signed. The Act came into effect on May 1, 1707. The Scottish Parliament and the English Parliament united to form the Parliament of Great Britain. Scotland keeps independence with respect to its legal and religious system, but coinage, taxation, public trade, parliament, and flag become one. The Red Cross of St. George combined with the blue cross of the St. Andrew, resulting in the Old Union flag. By the 1750s, disconnect over the Union's adverse political and economic effects was disappeared, enough to spur a Jacobin-led rebellion, painting themselves as defenders of the Scottish liberties, praying to repel the union of the restored Scotland Parliament, but remained chiefly concerned to restoring the crown to the descendants of James II. Through George I was able to quell the 1715 rebellion, the Jacobite cause remained a strong force in the Scottish Highlands, and in the 1745s, a second revolt centered on the Prince Charles Edward Stuart, better known as a Bonnie Prince Charlie on the John Pretend, broke out. Following the revolt's failure, the British government implemented hard policy animal to dismantle the Highlands clan system and eliminate the Jacobite cause once and for all. By 1850s, Glasgow had grown from a small market of the River Clyde into the second city of the British Empire. Scotland's textile industry thrived, sparking industrialization and urbanization, and Scots gained more power with the British government. Scotland joined England just the time of just before England takes off with the Industrial Revolution. Its inhabitants profit disproportionately from Britain's imperialism and industry, and for the last 150 years or so, the country was well and truly signed up part of the British Empire.
My name is Marco Antonio Rivera. I am going to share with you on the subject of the history of the beginnings of Ireland in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland was formed by the Union of the Kingdom of Great Britain, already an Union of the Kingdom of Scotland and England in 1807 and the Kingdom of Ireland in 1800. The Union was facilitated by the decision of the Irish Parliament in College Green, Dublin in August 1800 to vote in favor of the Union replacing the 1800 Union Act. Under the term of the Union, Ireland will be represented by more than 100 members of the Parliament in the Union Parliament, which were made at the Palace of Westminster. Part of the region will be Catholic emancipation. However, the condition was local. The King George III will argue that the emancipation of the Catholic world betrayed his coronation oath. Several generations of Irish leaders promised campaigned for the formation of a local government in Ireland. Daniel O'Connell managed for the British government to finally Catholic emancipation in 1829. However, his appealing to rebel. The Act of Union was a failure. A letter like Charles Stewart Panner campaigned for the creation of an overcommand in Ireland on the name of Home Rule. Government will remain a member of the United Kingdom. In 1990, members of the Irish Parliament elected to Westminster in illegal Irish independent Parliament. Called Dáil Ireland with the exclusive British centre of Dáil, Ireland's President Eamon de Valera. An Anglo-Irish was to place between 1919 and 1921. Finally, in December 1922, 26 of the Irish country renounced the United Kingdom of the Great Britain, and Ireland formed an Irish with dependent ratification of the man. Stay on Reality Zero.
Hello teacher, my name is Hector and I will speak with you about to begin of England in the United Kingdom. First, England was inhabited by the Celtic peoples. Later, it was colonized by the Romans, and later and thereafter it was invited by the Germanic peoples. It expulsed the Celtic, partially Romanized towards Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, and French Britain. In the 15th century, after releasing of series of Viking attacks, England became politically unified after James VI's ascension from Scotland to the throne of England in 1603 and the union with Scotland in 1707 to give rise to the United Kingdom.